everybody? So we're going to talk about talking to each other today. So I'm not going to take this too seriously. I'm going to give you some tips on how to talk to people in your organization so you can have better cultures. Think about that, right? Doesn't that sound really hard to do? So I want you to turn to your neighbor, give them a high five, and say, we are in this together. Yeah, we're all in this together. Okay. Who are my people with the mimosas? Who has the mimosas? Because I'm going to be picking on you today. I'm assuming you're the most gregarious people in the room, so I will be asking you to participate. So a little bit about me. So I'm LaTonya, and I play many roles. I'm a coach. I'm a speaker. I also teach at a business school. I do a lot of different things. I've seen the workplace from a lot of different perspectives. I like this picture because I try not to take myself too seriously. And I try to just help people work better together and navigate change better. So this is a panel that I was on. It was International Women's Month. And we were talking about LGBTQ businesses, having a lot of fun talking about that topic. And so what I'm going to try to do today is give you some perspectives on how to be more inclusive in your organization. And when you're talking about this, I'm not talking about one group, right? I'm not talking just about race. I'm not talking just about age. I'm talking about everybody. Like, how do you connect with people better? I'm very passionate about this. I think we're in a time in the world where people just aren't connecting. And usually that is probably the easiest answer, is just really stepping into people and listening and talking to them. So hopefully by the end of this, you're going to be able to have some better conversations with your neighbor. So are you ready? Okay, let's get going. This is a little delayed. I don't think the PowerPoint's ready, but we're ready here. Okay, so what am I grateful for? So I like that question. So this is a picture of my grandma. You could probably find her in that picture. If you can't, then let me know, or we could talk afterwards and I could point her out to you. But so my grandma's 93 years old, and I'm so grateful for her. She has been an inspiration. So this is my grandma and all of her coworkers, okay? And this picture was taken in the 1960s. And so my grandma, she's obviously 93, and she kind of limps around sometimes. And one of the things that she shared with me when she gave me this picture is that some of these women still visit her, right? She was a lunch lady, as we would call it. She worked at an elementary school for many years. That's what she did. She retired doing that. She loved the kids, and she loved the people, okay? These people would have barbecues. She knew their children. She knew their grandchildren. I knew their grandchildren. The reason why I'm sharing this is because, wow, aren't we making culture really complicated? She loved her workplace because she was included. No one looked like her, right? But people talked to each other, and people hung out. And so the reason why I'm talking about this is because I get perplexed when I talk to her about this, and she always thinks we're overcomplicating things in the world. And so I agree with her. And the reason why I agree with her is because I have a true story. So like I said, I'm also a coach. And one of my clients, I'm going to call her Tanisha, okay? And Tanisha got hired for a company that has been consistently ranked as a top culture in the world, okay? She was stoked, all right? Tanisha has a PhD. She's a data scientist, and she was going to be the first person to lead digital insights on the marketing team of this organization. Stoked, okay? I knew Tanisha because I knew when she was making a career shift, she was going to move from academia into tech, and she successfully did it, and she went through a boot camp, tech boot camp, data science boot camp. In this company, very excited, she's leading this team. 1 month in, I meet with her, we're chatting, and she is so excited. She finds out that they're going to merge her team with the customer service team. So she is going to be able to have even more resources and really make this work. So she is stoked. She had a big win in talking about this. She was able to promote someone that had been kind of faltering in the company. And everybody was hats off to Tanisha. Okay? So let's fast forward 3 months in. I see Tanisha, and I said, Tanisha, hey, you don't look like your regular self. What's going on? She looked like she hadn't combed her hair. She looked like she had just gotten out of bed. And that's not Tanisha, right? Tanisha's very sharp. She dresses really well. That's something she does. And she said, you know, LaTonya, I had something happen at work today. I said, what? And she said, well, my boss wants me to absorb someone on my team that has no experience in data science. And he's basically wants me to take her because, you know, she's young, she has a lot of potential. I'm actually really concerned. You know, I'm trying to build a new function here. So I told him, I expressed my concerns to him, and he told her, it's your choice. You do whatever you want, okay? I'm gonna empower you to make the right decision, okay? So Tanisha decides to make the decision that she's going to make this person apply for the job, okay? And she makes this decision, she makes it courageously, and things are quiet for a little while. And then I see her again 6 months later, and she is looking for a job. I mean, basically her boss told her that he didn't trust her because she made a decision that went against his recommendation, even though he recommended that she make the decision. It's obviously a command and control culture. She didn't realize that. She thought that this was a culture where she could make these types of decisions. In the background, also her team, she's struggling with them. They think she's too private, okay? She is a person that, like I said, she's a data scientist, she's brainy, she's an introvert. We were working on some different approaches she could do with her team to be able to connect with them, but her team wanted her to go out with them every night and have cocktails and hang out with them. And if she wasn't doing that, she was being private, all right? She's being cagey. And so she ruined the trust with her team, and there was really no recourse. When she went to her boss to help, no one could help. This was a culture, right? This was a culture that no one told her about. Okay, so we're gonna keep talking about Tanisha throughout, but I want everybody to take out a pen and a piece of paper, and I want you to write down one action that you would take next with Tanisha, okay? And I want you to discuss that with your neighbor. Okay, so let's come back. I love all the engagement. That means we're really thinking about this. Okay, so anybody want to share? Anybody brave enough to share? Just one thing they would do, one action they would take? Talk to her. What would you say? What would you say? What are your expectations? Okay, yeah. What else? Anybody over here?
I'd ask if she had a magic wand, what would she change about her situation?
I like that. If she had a magic wand, what would she change about the situation? I like that metaphor. Over here. What's possible? Huh. Yeah. So we're starting to get our brains warmed up. And I want you to continue thinking about this because you might not have a Tanisha, right? You might have like a Brad that's, maybe he's 25 and he's way different from the rest of your workplace. Or maybe you have someone else that's just not fitting in, okay? So when we're talking about what we would do next, so there's common advice that I hear at pretty much every single conference I go to. The first thing I hear is hire people, okay? So if you want diversity, hire people that are diverse. Well, that didn't really work in Tanisha's case, right? She was hired, she was brought in. Doesn't really work very well. Find them a mentor. Okay, well, let's test this theory out. Well, Tanisha got a mentor. One of her mentors was the president of the company. One of them was the head of her organization. Didn't really work. Okay. She also had some folks across the organization. With mentors, you want to be careful because they're just sharing their experience, right? They can't really coach you. They're just going to, if they were very successful navigating the company, they're going to tell you how they successfully did that, but you may not be able to do that, right? So I'm looking at you because look at us, like we're different people when you look at us, right? And my formula is going to be different from yours, right? Appreciate you giving me the advice, but sometimes it doesn't work. Give them exposure. Can you give Tanisha more exposure? Right? How much more exposure can you give her? Okay? Send them to training. Well, I'm glad that one said training. I get that a lot. Well, maybe you should send Tanisha to leadership training. Okay, she's working with the leadership coach. It's not working, right? It's the culture. It's not her. I mean, she's doing everything she can. All right? Unconscious bias training. I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong. I don't mean to laugh and belittle unconscious bias workshops, but that's pretty much been the answer to everything. And we're going to talk about that. So basically with unconscious bias, you're saying, oh, yeah, okay, I have biases. Great. All right, move on. Now what, right? There's really nothing to do with that. You could say, her boss could say, yeah, I had a bias. But that doesn't really do anything. What's next after that? And that's what we're missing with these trainings. So this is what you're going to learn today. I'm hoping everybody takes away some perspective. You're going to learn why it's so hard to achieve inclusive cultures, why coaching can help, and how to scale this, okay? So I'm going to give you some ideas. Obviously, you're not going to be able to do everything in one day, but I'm going to give you some things that you can even practice before leaving the conference today. Okay, deal? Great. So why is this so hard? So I've worked with a lot of tech companies, and they're spending a lot of money on diversity and inclusion, okay? 50 billion is spent in that industry just on leadership development initiatives. And I lumped everything together. I lumped leadership development. I lumped diversity and inclusion. 39% of companies spend at least $1,000 on hypos. Who's in that 39% that spends at least $1,000 a year on high potentials? Anyone? Oh, wow, you guys aren't spending any money on your people. Okay, we have some people in the back here. So yeah, typically you have some sort of training budget, right? And you're spending the money, but overall, you're not seeing the results, okay? Only 20% of companies, and this is a stat that always stands out to me, only 20% use relationship-based development, right? So that's coaching, mainly coaching, mentoring, and really closely managing those programs. So you're seeing a lot of money being thrown at scale, right? So you're seeing a lot of money being thrown at technology, scaling that technology. You're not seeing a lot of money being spent on people developing relationships face-to-face, okay? And that's where I try to help my clients shift is kind of rethink about how they're spending their money so they get more results. If you look at this boardroom, it's the same. I'm not going to keep going into this too much, but that's where we're having a lot of the issues is really, if you don't have any kind of diversity in the pipeline, you're not going to have any at the top, okay? So this, like I said, this is with women. I was talking to someone yesterday about millennials, and there's some people that are intersectional and all of these different groups, right? LGBTQ, people come into the workplace and if they're not succeeding in the middle management levels, we're never going to get them in the boardroom. And that's why you've seen a lot of these board trainings pop up for women, because there's still so few. I mean, even women are not in boardrooms, which is perplexing to me, because you have a lot of women in executive leadership in some industries, but there's still a lot to do. And so what does culture have to do with this? Just a little delay here. How does culture play a role? Well, I'm going to ask you that question. So I want you to take out your paper again, and I want you to write down what makes a great culture. Don't overthink this. Okay. And the second thing I want you to write down is, how would you describe the culture that Tanisha is in? Okay, and I want you to take that and put it aside. We're going to come back to it later and what another activity we're going to do. So when you're thinking about great cultures, though, can you just yell out some words that come up? What makes a great culture? Trust. Oh, yes, trust. We're going to talk about that. Respect. Communication. What's that? Yeah, generous. Caring. Yes. Yes. Teamwork. What's that? Transparent. Yeah. And so these things are, I love this, because you guys are thinking below the surface. We're going to talk about that here today. So I've asked people what makes a great culture. I get really disappointed because like I said, I'm also a coach, and a lot of people, when they're thinking about great cultures, guess what they think about? What do you think the resources they go to? Drinks. Yeah, drinks. Okay, so they go to Glassdoor. Who's heard of Glassdoor? What do you think of Glassdoor? Just yell out what you think of Glassdoor. It sucks. It's one-sided. Yeah, they still have a very big stronghold in the culture industry, though, right? I've spent a lot of time out there because, so even Tanisha's company, we went out there and looked at the 5 stars, right? Great. We have ping pong tables. We get free food. My manager's great. So you see all these companies that are best places to work. And I work with a lot of clients that have worked for, or that currently work for these best places, and their experience, not so much. So let's look at Glassdoor and their ratings. So I think we have a huge problem with culture ratings. And I don't know if that problem is fixable yet. I think it's probably could be fixable if some companies combined. I have my youngest audience member here ever, so hopefully he's okay. So Glassdoor. So when Glassdoor looks at culture, what they do, I was so fascinated, so I looked this up, and they studied this, and they look at company ratings. So they look at, in aggregate, what is the average star rating that this person gets? Anybody ever do reviews on Yelp? Like write reviews or read them? Yeah, it's the same thing. So if Yelp is going to announce the best restaurants in Chicago, and they coin some sort of system, it's going to start with that, the number of ratings. You see career opportunities, you see culture and values. The one thing I saw that was missing here is there's nothing about diversity, nothing about inclusion, nothing about some of the things you guys said, caring, generosity, teamwork, those types of things. I also am fascinated with Thomson Reuters, because they have a most diverse companies rating. I'm not saying it's better, but I am saying that, and this is hard to see, if you see a lot of this is data oriented. So it's more, it feels a little bit less fluffy. Like you'll see that they care about whether or not a company has daycares, right? For working mothers, working fathers. They care about how many people are in the executive ranks. They care about leadership development and how many people are participating. So, and this is how they rank their companies. I still think we're short-sighted though. And the reason why, I want to show you a few pictures and you tell me. And these pictures, again, are actual situations of clients that I've worked with. So let's think about our culture ratings. And let's consider Glassdoor and how they consider it. All right? Is this a great culture? I mean, if we look at Glassdoor, you know, they say, hey, we have perks, we have great teams, we're ranked high. How about this? This company, I have a friend or a client that works for a company like this. Great teams, they're always ranked really high. Would you say this is a good culture? Would you even notice this? Have you seen this before? Are we aware enough to see these things? How about this? Is this good culture? How about this one? I see it all the time. These are companies on those lists, I'm telling you, all the time. Just hire them, right? Just give them exposure. This is what happens, right? So why does this happen? There's an explanation, and I always go to the culture iceberg here. So when I'm looking at these culture ratings, a lot of them are based above the surface, right? So when I look at Glassdoor, most of the stuff in there is stuff that you can see, that's tangible, right? So it's going to be the free lunches, it's going to be the daycare, it's going to be the flexible work hours. But there are all these things, and when I think about Tanisha, she only got to the tip of the iceberg in the interview process. And companies only really do that, right? It's very difficult. There's so many companies more increasingly giving you psychological assessments, right? How is that going to tell you if you are fit into this organization? How is that going to tell the candidate more about the organization and if they can work there? So we're moving more to like automated systems for humans, which is not working. Tanisha, when you look at the second level, this is what people talk about in the company. So these are some of the things that her team says about her, right? Like they talk about the fun they have at night, going out. And then the stuff at the bottom this is how things really get done. And we don't even talk about these things. So what are these things? Well, to give you some examples, so at the top, I think we have that established. These are the things you can see. In the middle, these are the work attitudes. So these are basically strategies, visions, goals. You know, you see all the companies are like, we have big goals this year, right? But what do employees really think about it? Are they bought in on it? You don't really know until you get inside, right? Like you see all this stuff and then you might get inside and employees are like, actually, I'm not really that on board with those. And sometimes to be fair, employees are really excited about it. But then at the bottom, and this is where Tanisha was struggling, this is how things really get done, right? How do things really get done in her company? Well, the way things really get done is everything goes through the president. That's what we learned. Everything has to go through the president and the CEO of the company. And if the president or CEO makes a decision, you do it. That's an unwritten rule that Tanisha did not understand. And she wasn't going to understand through her process. No one told her. I don't even know if they're aware, right? I don't even know if they're aware that what the president says goes. Very command and control. This is where that psychological safety is. And I'm going to talk a lot about that because that's huge. And that's the piece where when you feel safe to make mistakes in the organization, you feel safe to bring your whole self to work, that's golden, okay? And that's in the bottom of the ocean in the murky waters. And you don't really know that until you spend time inside. So what is this? What is psychological safety? Well, it's the extent to which we feel safe and vulnerable in the organization. And again, this is below the surface. It's really hard to get to this. Like, how do you know if you're going to feel safe in a company after you join it, right? Isn't that really hard to see? I mean, everybody's on their best behavior in the interview process. And it's not even that, I don't even believe that recruiters are purposely trying to deceive you. A lot are just inexperienced. They have no experience below the surface. They don't know how things get done. They're just trying to fill their quotas. They're just trying to fill their hires. Especially if you're someone that is different and they can get a win, they're excited. They're like, yeah, I'm gonna bring this person in and everybody's gonna love me because I got this person to move across the country and this is gonna be great. So there's all these things lurking below the surface that we might not even realize. Like I said, in Tanisha's situation, what was lurking below the surface is that everything has to go through the president of the company. It's not very efficient, right? But that's how it goes. So tell her, right? So she knows. So I want you to think about Tanisha's situation in your own company and what could be lurking below the surface in your company. And write that down. So is there anything in your company when you're thinking the lowest end of that iceberg in those murky waters? What is in those murky waters? What are those things that you don't talk about? That it's the way things happen. Sometimes you have to go to someone's office in order to get a decision approved, right? Like things like that. Like what is lurking? And think about things that could adversely affect employees, okay? It might be something that you're used to. You're like, suck it up. That's how we do it here. Those are the things I want you to write down, okay? They're suck it up things. So how do we get to these things? Well, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about coaching and how coaching can help you get to these things. And you don't have to be a professional coach to do this. I'm going to give you some questions to work with. I'm going to let you come up with some questions on your own. So you could take this back to your companies and use it right away. I also want you to use it with each other, right? Instead of, who hates small talk in this room? Great, so you're gonna really wanna practice this. I want you to practice going below the surface today, okay? I want you to practice that. Instead of asking someone about the thunderstorm today, go below the surface, okay? I'm daring you to do it. You can do it. We can all do it. Okay, so why do we need more coaching? So this diagram was developed from the Association for Talent Development. And any type of stimulus or development activity, you'll see that without coaching and ongoing reinforcement, it falls off, right? So with training, you know, when you get home from training, you get the spike, like you're gonna get home from this conference, be like, oh my gosh, I learned so much, it's great. But then a week later, you'll see with the black line, it's just gonna keep dropping, right? Unless you got coaching with someone, or unless you had maybe even accountability partner from here, it's just going to drop off. And so any type of developmental activity you do, I strongly recommend coaching. And if you can't afford, again, professional coaches, then help your employees get together and be accountability partners, right? Because you want them to reap the benefits of this. I mean, you see how much higher that line is. So what's wrong with coaching today? Well, I'm going to share with you a case study in a minute on what's working, but gosh, there's so much performance-only coaching going on. There's so many misconceptions. A lot of coaching is advising. Again, like what I said earlier, I had a client that her boss thought he was coaching her, but he was telling her what to do. He's like, hey, you need to wear this to this meeting. And she was like, what? And he's like, well, I just want to give you some coaching. This is how people are perceiving you. That's not coaching, right? It's rigid, right? It's like makes you smaller when you're really not being coached. And then you're like, this is not, I don't want to be coached. It's very reactive. Tanisha's situation The reason why she was so upset is it was extremely reactive. No one was proactive with her. No one worked with her to help her understand how to navigate the workplace. So one coaching case study I have. So how can we be more inclusive with coaching? So this is an external coach, a professional coach, and he was hired to coach an African-American client. He was not African-American, but the client was, and so he was a little nervous about it. So we were talking about it, and it turned out really well. And you know what he did is he structured it so there were many different stakeholder check-ins with his boss and people around him. This African-American executive had moved his entire family across the country, and he was struggling. And so this was kind of like a last gasp. The only reason why the company hired the coach is because he was an executive. And the coach, instead of doing his conventional approach, what he did is he got below the surface. And what he learned was eye-opening. He learned that people in the company perceived that this person was only hired because he was African-American, okay? And they were upset. So, and they discredited a lot of what he did because of that. They saw on the other side that the client, he could not talk about anything in the company. I mean, he was struggling too. He had moved his family across country. His wife wasn't able to find a job. His kids didn't really like where they were going to school, and he was getting no support around this. This was never talked about. And so the plan was basically for him to talk more about this and admit his shortcomings. And that was really hard for him. But he went to his team and he said, look, I want to start this off on a different foot. I've made some mistakes, and he talked about the mistakes he made, and he did a management simulation and actually heard what their concerns were. Also, the leadership, the coach got together with the leadership, and the leadership opened up and they supported him more. With this one, they had invested so much money in him that they really didn't want him to leave. It would make them look really bad. And so this is an example of how inclusive coaching can work and getting below the surface. So let's talk a little bit more about what coaching below the surface looks like. So I've spent many years as a talent management executive, and I've spent a lot of time doing stuff on the left, right? Strategizing, coming up with a plan, dashboards, right? These are the things we do. Dashboards, diversity surveys, leadership development programs, right? But what I want to challenge you to do after this session is do more things on the right. Do more below the surface things. If you are a talent leader, a culture leader, or anyone that touches culture, try to do things below the surface. What does that mean? Well, asking questions in the moment. A lot of people get squeamish because they're like, well, I don't know, what if it gets silent? I don't know what to say. No, just ask questions below the surface. And if you're struggling, repeat back. Have some active listening. And with Tanisha, that's one of the things that leadership missed. They could have looked at her and said, gosh, Tanisha, you look really stressed out. What can I do for you? But none of that happened. It was like, suck it up. You're new. This is how we do things here. Just being with the person. Just asking them questions, just learning about them, right? You probably have a lot of things in common, right? Tanisha probably had a lot of things in common with her team, but they had very unilateral thinking. So how could you just be with the person? How can you ask them about something? Ask them about their shoes. Ask them about something. And if you don't feel comfortable asking about what someone's wearing, ask them what their passion is. Kind of what Frank gave us yesterday, right? Like these kinds of things. Observing. So maybe if you observed Tanisha, right, you probably would have seen something different, right? Instead of just pushing things on her, making plans. And encouraging people to bring their entire self to work, that's hard to do. A lot of companies say they do it, but they don't. But encouraging her to do that and reinforcing her. So these are some questions I want you to walk away with, and we're going to practice this in a second. So when you're looking at above the surface questions, and I asked some of you what you would ask her. So on the left-hand side, to be fair, some of these could get below the surface, but they're not ideal. These are more of the strategy questions, right? So questions like, what kind of manager am I? What could I do to help you better work here? I mean, how are you going to answer that question, right? How could we be better? What are your goals? Tanisha's goal was to be a VP. And so her boss asked her this, and he said, great, let's get you there. Does that get below the surface? No, right? So the things on the right are the things where I want you to try to focus more with your employees. Where do you need the most support, right? Then you're assuming there is an area where they need support. Tanisha could have used support with leading her team. What surprises you the most about working here? That is a great question to ask new hires, because then you can really reveal the things that are lurking in your organization. Like, what surprises you? Well, that everything has to go through the president. Oh, it does? Oh, yeah, I guess you're right. So this is the way to get at that. There's really no other way to do it except that. And then asking some of these questions on a scale from 1 to 10, how well do you fit in, right? Asking them about, do they feel like they fit in? Because we're always trying to force our values on them. And what do you know now that you didn't learn about in the interview process? That one goes a long way, okay? And I recommend asking these questions throughout the first 1 to 3 months. About the 6-month mark, the employees made up their mind whether they're going to stay or leave, okay? All right, so what I want you to do, we're going to take just a minute because I think we're running short of time here. I want you to team up with your partner, and I want you to turn to them and ask them one above the surface question and then one below the surface question, okay? And then I want you to note the types of responses that you get, okay? So just spend 1 minute doing this. Go ahead. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay, okay. Okay, so I love the energy, and I can see everybody's engaged. But Nick is kicking me off. Thank you, Nick. So what I want to challenge you to keep doing, I'm going to skip these last two, but I hope you all leave believing that great cultures are inclusive cultures. So let's all, so turn to your neighbor and ask, are we still in this together? Give them a high five again. And the last, and so let's connect. And wait, why did this go here? Okay. Oh, okay. We had an issue here. So let's connect. I'm going to be around, and I'd love to practice your questioning with you and above the surface, below the surface. You could connect with me on LinkedIn or Instagram. And yeah, let's talk. I mean, if you want a thought partner, if you want to practice the above, below the surface, I hate small talk. So you can feel free to ask me a below the surface question right away, and I will enjoy that. I will be receptive to that. So that's it. Nick's kicking me off with his mimosas, so he's probably coming up here belligerently drinking. So I will get off the stage. Thank you.
Once again, LaTonya Wilkins. How to go through 40 slides in 3 seconds. All right. I have a couple of announcements. So they were all worried about the weather, and I thought, what are you guys worried about a little rain for? And then somebody goes, food trucks. Apparently food trucks don't work in the rain. Well, they do. We don't. So if you have an umbrella, you have nothing to worry about. If you don't have an umbrella and you don't like getting wet, congratulations. Ian's Pizza will be bringing a bunch of pizzas inside. You don't have to go get wet. The food trucks, the other food trucks are still there. So you can go out and help yourself. You should have a certificate, a coupon, some form of documentation that you got at registration. Nick, would you like to talk to this?
Thanks, Frank. Yeah, so for the folks that do want to have the food cart experience, there are vouchers at the registration table. You'll have to pick one of those up to redeem at the food cart. So if you want to go out, great, fantastic. Get your voucher at registration. If you want to stay here for lunch, Ian's is getting delivered to this room. There will also be salads and drinks. So for those that don't want to go outside, plenty of food available in-house.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. We also have later this afternoon some raffles. And so you'll need to go see each of the participants in the room, and here's some of what they are raffling. Bluebeard is giving away a hand-curated. I'm sorry, Bluebeard is doing nothing. They're just a ghost. Blueboard, it's handwritten, so I apologize. Blueboard is giving a hand-curated Blueboard experience, like a spa experience or kayaking. So if it sounds intriguing, like I want to run out of here and go find out what that is. Farwell, they have an Amazon gift card of $150, one of $50, and a wine lover's gift basket. Sounds pretty cool. Let's see. Question Pro. They have a subscription to Question Pro Workforce. Synergita, did I say that right? They have 2 Amazon Echo Dots that they're giving away. And TPC also is giving away 2 Amazon Echo Dots. And you guess how many pieces of candy and almonds are in the basket. And they're actually out there counting right now. So. And yeah, if you run out there, you could tell them. And then Summit is giving away. We asked them what they're giving away, and they said financial independence. And I said, what does that look like? And they said it's a $100 Visa gift card. So I love that. All right, so LaTonya kind of had you do a recap, but I'm just going to ask you if you would to just stand real quick, and we're just going to take 30 seconds. When you're done, then it's time to move on to the breakout sessions. You'll go from the breakout sessions to lunch. After lunch, you'll go to the afternoon breakout sessions. If everybody could be back in here at 3:15. But before sit back down, we have one 30-second thing that we want to do. A big part of this conference is connecting. And so I learned something really cool yesterday about how to connect. Let me ask you this. If you could connect with every person in this room in 5 seconds, would you want to do it? All right, well, there's maybe some you don't care about, but for the most part. Charlie, you'll come on up. So we have a LinkedIn expert who's going to share this really cool thing, and we're going to all do it together. So if you get out your phones, go to your LinkedIn app. If you don't have a LinkedIn app, you don't have time to download it. And guys, this is my friend Craig Foreman. He's he's a LinkedIn expert. Yeah. Used to work with them, so he's going to show you this really cool networking tool.
All right, this is a really powerful tool, and I'm currently with Culture Amp, so I want to say that. But we also are really big into creating community. So in events that I've been part of, this is really powerful, and I think when a lot of you see this, when you go to events, you'll do this as well, because us connecting and being in a community is such a critical part of this movement in the workforce. So if you open up your LinkedIn app, and on your home page at the bottom, you're going to see a little icon with a couple people. Do people see that? And that's kind of where you do your connections. At the top, when you do that, there's a button that says Find Nearby, and it'll probably say off right now. But if you hit that button, you may need to turn on your Bluetooth. What it's going to do is then it'll show up, Find Nearby will show up everybody that turns it on, and we can find each other, and then you can click on people and send out invitations and connections. So it's a really quick way when you're in a group of people to do that. Is it working? Are people seeing that? Awesome. There's every once in a while I've seen that where it doesn't come up. The other thing I want to say real quickly, a plug, is CultureCon also has a CultureCon community in LinkedIn. And there'll be more information later today, but from their website, you can find that. You can also find it on LinkedIn. So another place to go and connect using LinkedIn, which is such a powerful tool to help us kind of in this mission. So thank you very much for the time to do that. And I'm looking forward to connecting with some people.
Awesome. Thank you, Craig. All right. Now that you guys aren't paying attention to anything that we're saying, please stand. If you'll please stand. Instead of looking at your phone, if you look at your partner. We did what you were grateful for this morning. I'm just going to ask you before we go to the break and then to your breakout sessions. You're not going to see this person for a little while unless you became really good friends and you're going to sit together in the breakout. I'm just going to ask you to share with your partner one thing that you appreciate about them. Person with the longest toes, go first. When you're done, head on out.